witch ensemble I'd put on especially for him at Halloween. I like seeing you in silly costumes.
It can't be any sillier than what you usually wear,
Grenville huffed. I glared at the ghost. I am not the best person for this job. Not for miles. Besides, I've not seen Brutus for days. I was going to search for him and make sure he's all right.
The cat will be fine. Go talk to Maidmont and...
Winter paused and allowed himself a slow, lazy smile.
We can finish this later.
But Grenville... Winter cleared his throat and addressed the air.
Grenville, as the current ipsissimus of the Hallowed Order for Magical Enlightenment, I am seconding Ivy for another job. She will return to her normal duties later.
Both he and Grenville smirked at me. They weren't genetically related in any way, but sometimes I could swear they shared the exact same DNA. I threw up my hands and gave in. I wasn't going to win. Besides, how hard could helping out at Santa's grotto be? Piece of Christmas cake. There were many benefits to being the one and only squeeze of the ipsissimus. Every witch, regardless of their level or place in the order hierarchy, was keen to help me out, and I'd managed to engage many of them in regular errand running. It was for the good of all, I reasoned. I was happy because I wasn't working up a sweat. Winter was happy because I had more time and energy to spend with him. The witches were happy because Winter was happy. It was win-win-win. Of course, it did mean that I had to spend a great deal of my day being polite to people and saying hello. I wasn't even halfway to the Order's library, where Maidmont and the grotto were located, and I'd already been stopped half a dozen times. I thought I was safe when the path ahead was finally clear of red robes, and the library building itself was in sight. Then a young, nervous voice called out from behind me, "Miss Ipsissimis, I'd really like to ask you about your thoughts on the workings of lavender versus mugwort in the workings of an effective weather spell." Don't ask me about herb lore. Never ask me about herb lore. I paused and turned. Ivy. The latest in a long line of young neophytes blinked at me, dark hair framing a very earnest face. Huh? I didn't think Ivy would work. Do I need to dry it first? My name is Ivy, not Miss Ipsissimus. In fact, try saying Miss Ipsissimus 3 times in a row. It's beyond daft. Repeating my name aloud had become a familiar refrain. Most witches still struggled with the fact that I didn't possess a proper order title. Global Phantom Solutions and Assurance Strategist didn't have much of a ring to it. I'd suggested on several occasions that it be shortened to Assurance Strategist, or even just Ass. Sadly, it hadn't yet taken, but at least I enjoyed the facial expressions on the many humorless, order-driven witches I suggested it to. Sorry. The neophyte blushed and looked down. I glared. Don't apologize. We've never spoken before, and you didn't know what to call me. Instead of saying sorry, say something along the lines of, well, that's so much better than wrapping my mouth around Miss Ipsissimus. Or tell me that if I'd spoken in a full sentence, then you'd have understood, and I should learn the proper rules of grammar. Don't say sorry for trying to do the right thing. The neophyte stared at me. I tapped my foot in response and raised my eyebrows. She coughed. You're very curmudgeonly to make such a big deal out of a name." She coughed again and blushed some more. I nodded approvingly. Well done. I turned round and started walking again. This was a technique I was perfecting. Flummox witches to the point where they'd forgotten why they wanted to talk to me in the first place, and I could escape the conversation much faster. Unfortunately, I'd clearly not perfected it. "So," she called out again, "Ivy, should I use lavender or mugwort?" I had to give her brownie points for not giving up. Stopping once more, I yielded to the question. Sometimes you had to know when to give in. I suppose Winter had taught me that. What exactly are you trying to do? Weather covers a wide spectrum of possibilities. Do you want a sunbeam for your familiar to bask in? Or do you want to prevent a hurricane from happening?